Hi, welcome to our daily encounter. Today we finish up 2nd Chronicles, which really finishes a large section of scriptures. We've spent some 6 books reading about the kings in one way or the other, starting in 1 Samuel with Saul all the way up till today. And so what I want to do is kind of have a short devotion as we normally do, and then I'm going to be posing some questions at the end just to allow you to reflect on what we've read in connection to these kings. But we'll get to that in a moment. First, I want to just share some thoughts about these kings, kind of looking at it from a bird's eye view. As we look back on all these kings, the good kings that would come, the bad kings that would come, and we're just looking at it from a distance, there's basically 2 things that really stand out as we look back. And that is that there are choices that we make in life, and that there are consequences in connection to those choices. And we saw this whether we were dealing with a good king, like Hezekiah, as we recently read, or if we're dealing with and reading about one of the evil kings, such as some of the kings that we read about today in the last chapter of 2nd Chronicles. In either case, you have choices that were made by the individual and consequences tied to those choices. So if it was a good king, typically what you would see is that this king would turn his heart towards the Lord. He would walk in the ways of David, his father, and he would keep the commandments of the Lord. It usually involved him cleansing the land of idolatry, and God would bless that king. He would give him rest from all of his enemies, and he would also give the king a chance to strengthen the kingdom. But if a king was evil and did evil in the sight of the Lord, then he would be invaded by his enemies, and he would be oppressed, and difficulty would come upon him, and sometimes even physical illness would come upon him. And so we see consequences connected to the choices of that king. And as we kind of think about that, we can look at our own lives and think about the fact that from the time we wake up in the morning until we put our heads down at night, we make thousands of decisions in one day. Some of them not so important. What type of cereal we're going to eat or what we're going to wear may not make a big impact in our lives, but some of them actually do. Especially some that have to do with morals and whether we are going to follow after what is good or what is after evil. And we have to recognize the fact that the choices that we make are going to bring consequences into our lives, whether we realize it or not. And not only into our lives, but also in the lives of everybody around us. Because as we saw with the kings, a lot of the consequences that they had affected the people around them, whether for good or for bad. And we see that true in our lives as well. We see it when a person is good. The consequence is that everyone kind of receives a blessing from that in one way or the other. Or if a person is evil, does sin, that sin harms the individual himself or herself and others around them. So that's something to think about. Let's be more, focused on making good, sound decisions and making the right choices so that we can have desirable consequences in our lives. Good consequences. Okay, now let's now transition into the reflective part of our devotion today. And like I said, I'm just going to pose some questions to you guys just to kind of aid you in reflecting over the readings that we've done in connection to the kings. And as I pose each question, I'll pause to give you time to kind of think about and reflect, and then we'll go to the next question. The first question I'd like to pose here is, kind of in connection to what I just spoke about. What did you learn or have impressed on you when it comes to making choices? based upon the stories of the kings. What did you learn or have impressed on you when it comes to making choices when reading about these kings? Think about that for a moment. Now think about this. We are not kings entrusted with a nation like these kings were that we are reading about, but each of us are entrusted with a life, with our own life. And I guess the question that could be posed here is, what are some definite choices that you plan on making starting today to build a life that reflects what God would want in your life? Okay, so what kind of choices are you going to start making today to make sure that your life reflects the type of life that God wants you to live? All right, next question. What kings left the biggest impression on you and why? What kings left the biggest impression on you and why? Was there any king that inspired you over the others? Was there any king that inspired you over the others? Okay, so these are just some things to think about, to reflect on. Don't feel obligated to give us the answers. If you want to, feel free to. But these are just things that kind of get you thinking, getting the mental juices flowing as we kind of contemplate and reflect upon these kings. I do thank you guys for listening in today. And as always, I hope you guys have a great day. I love you guys. God bless.